Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Welcome to the third episode of Electric 145.
Yes.
Yes,
A
we're
name
back.
we haven't quite decided on.
Yeah, that's okay. We can change it.
Yeah.
People haven't gotten used to it yet.
People haven't been watching it yet.
Exactly. So there's room for that. Be one of those things where people come in and they say, "Oh yeah, I really love that podcast that they do. Hey, did you know before it had its name, it was called Electric 145? Why the fuck would they call it Electric 145?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything.
It's like
Why
when
would
you
they
say
do
Bros
that?
Play. It's like, are you sure that's the name you want to go with?
Oh, something I've been meaning to mention to you for a while about Bros Play. So when you do a hashtag on Twitter, you can't have symbols. You can only have numbers and letters.
Oh, sorry, exclamation mark doesn't work.
So it's actually Bros Play 1. That's the hashtag is Bros Play 1. We're going to keep it that way
That's
too.
awesome, man. That's way better than what we had.
Yeah, so if you want to reference Bros Play on Twitter, that is the way to do it,
Mm.
just for future reference.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, folks.
Oh, Jesus.
What's going on?
Sorry. We got to break for a second.
Now you can go.
And we're back. Yeah, always check your devices. Always check your hard drives and stuff. Find out if you got space enough to do your videos. Because it doesn't matter how prepared you are. If you can't record, then you can't record.
Well, you just said it doesn't matter how prepared you were, but we weren't prepared.
No.
So I don't know if that applies.
That doesn't count.
If we were prepared, we would have had space.
We're prepared. This is preparedness.
That's like showing up to camping and saying, I'm prepared. All I have to do is go and cut all the wood that I'm going to need.
But that's what this generation does. They say weird, stupid shit like that, where they're like, yeah, I won, except I was second place.
Yeah, this thing literally just happened to me. Does literally now mean a minute ago? Like, what the fuck? What does literally mean these days?
Here's the funny thing. We're slashing the language in half, and then the next one in half, and it won't go away. The meaning, the strength of our language is always having, so it can't go away, but it's certainly going to become diminished to the point where you can't see it anymore, right? So literally used to mean in a situation where there are more than one meaning, it is the literal version of that thing. The most common way people would describe that would be on fire, like a hockey team was on fire because they were doing very well. That's a figurative statement that it's intended to, it's hyperbole, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's literally on fire, as in that house was actually in flames. And that's literally.
Or that hockey team had a very bad game.
Right. Oh, because they're actually on fire.
Yeah, well, it would be probably break the game up. I don't think they could keep playing. There may or may not be rules against that.
I wonder if there's actually rules in the hockey, like, referee's playbook. Like,
Players are not allowed to be on fire while playing the game.
Immediate penalty.
Yeah, you have to go sit in the box for 2 minutes.
Yeah, on
until
fire.
the fire burns out.
Yeah, exactly. That's why there's fire extinguishers in the penalty box. You didn't know that?
Yeah, and so what does it mean now?
So then it started to mean actually. So
Interesting.
I literally watched that last night. I actually watched that last night. No one thought there was any other version of watched it last night, but you decided to do it anyway because people are so uncertain and so concerned that other people will think they are uncertain that they just put in these unnecessary confirmations into their sentences instead of just saying what they did. They have to actually tell you, I actually did this.
Well, and there's this weird language math that I think is applying here as well. So someone will often say, this literally just happened to me.
Right.
So what they're really saying is not that this literally happened. They're saying literally just, as in just a second ago. So literally recently, this thing that's figurative happened. That's right. What they're really...
literally meaning actually. This actually happened to me right now. Instead of the regular time when I'm normally embellishing things and saying that something just happened when it was actually 6 days ago. This is a real just happened because I'm normally a fucking liar and I need you to know right now, look, why would I lie?
So in a way they are sort of using the term right.
No, they're not.
But in the sentence
they're using it wrong to make up for the fact that they used the entire language wrong. That's just yeah. So now it doesn't even mean anything. It's just like something you say. You just add it on.
No, to me it still does. I don't give a shit what they think.
No.
It still has meaning to me.
I'll use it correctly.
Yeah.
Actually, I try not to use it at all. But now it's just like I literally did this thing the other day, and it's like, what do you mean though? Like that's not even an unusual thing to say. Why would you think I wouldn't believe you?
It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's more unnecessary than it is wrong.
Parenthetic you knows have been attaching themselves to the end of our sentences.
I love Taylor.
Like I'm not really sure if what I'm saying is correct or that you'll believe me.
And that's upspeak.
That's also upspeak. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently they've been talking about upspeak since I forget what it was, like the late 90s. Like it was already a phenomenon in the late 90s.
Oh, I imagine it was earlier than that.
I imagine people have been doing that.
So what's the purpose?
All the time.
Or is it
What's
just
the purpose of what? The degrading of the language?
No, what's the purpose of upspeak? Or is it just the you knows thing?
I think upspeak in an ironic way is a way to down talk to people. I think it's a way of condescending on people when you don't really have an upper hand to be standing on.
In this house, we put things over here?
Yeah, exactly. By upspeaking, you're in a weird figurative way. You're literally putting yourself above them. You're going up, which means they're down here, and it's like
I guess I saw that in Walmart when this lady comes around the corner and there's 3 employees trying to figure out where something goes, and she's like, "Your little meeting of the minds can go somewhere else."
There it is.
And
There's
it's like
the upspeak.
Yeah, sorry. It's like she knows about the meeting of the minds. Break up. Scatter. What the funny thing about that?
One of them goes running under a shelf. Someone else dives between a couple of coats in one of those little circular racks.
Yeah, right into the rugs.
Like roaches.
With all the $5 rugs. They'll never check here. Nobody goes here. That's why they're always here. That's why they're always
Someone
full.
just opens one of those like drawers for the bottom of your bed. One of those chests just jumps inside of it.
So the funny part about that is that this lady was being like, she didn't even hesitate. She came around the corner, which was like, "You're meeting of the minds," and just like, no, yeah, not like, "Excuse me, boys, like, could you get the fuck out of my way? I'm a lady. I got children." But she's being a little unruly. But she was right about the meeting of the minds. But it was more so the timing, because this was 5 p.m. on a Friday in a Walmart.
Yeah,
that is peak. That's like the beginning of the rush for them. That is not the time to be deciding where things go in the aisles.
They regularly do that, though.
Do they really?
Yeah, well, grocery stores more so. On on a Saturday, when everyone's going to do their shopping at 10 in the morning, that's when the executives are there making the decisions. And you see them walking around and you just go, "I thought this was a cheap grocery store. What's with the guys with suits? Like, what the hell are they doing here?"
Yeah. Oh, it's important to make sure that your people look the quality level of the product you're selling. Because if you're buying like $13 burgers from somebody in a full-on tuxedo, you're like, "Where's this money going? What's happening here?" You're not supposed to question it. Someone with like a lesser suit, just a regular.
Yeah, you're wondering, what am I paying for with my $13?
Yeah, where's this money going?
Yeah.
Or like when you buy like something from MacDax, the people are wearing like fucking jerseys and shit.
Well, a great example of that is that the grocery store that I shop at is No Frills. You go in there and the stockers are not required to wear a uniform.
Nice.
So they're dressed in street clothes along with all the other people dressed in street clothes, and most of them come from the same cultural and socioeconomic group that the people that shop there do.
So you don't know.
No. So the real question is the guy putting things on the shelf? That's who designates.
Taking them off, right?
Yeah. So if this guy's stocking stuff, he works there, and so sometimes a guy will be standing next to a cart trying to pick something, and you're thinking, Is he work here?
That is so frustrating.
Can you move your cart, bro?
I had that the other day in a calendar place. I was buying a gift, and I looked over at this lady, and I'm like, I don't know if she works
Does she?
here,
Doesn't she?
But she's like looking at the counter or like the shelf in a way that I don't think she's buying. And so I kind of just like stared at her for a while, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Shit, yeah, you work here." And then I'm like, "How much is this thing?" And she grabs it from me and looks around, and there's a price tag on the box, and I was like, "Okay, thanks."
Yeah, those moments. I hate those moments. Or when you say, "Hey, where can I find a pen?" And someone just says, "Yeah, it's like right next to your hand, actually. If you just look down and around, you'll find it."
Yep.
Yeah, when they engage you, it's always easier. But man, I just don't understand not putting people in some sort of identifiable uniform. It doesn't necessarily have to be like Best Buy where they all look like this fucking army of, blue shirts. It doesn't have to be that bad, but they should at least have to wear a No Frills t-shirt. They should at the very least have to identify themselves.
Something.
They don't even wear name tags.
Name tags would be a good start, yeah.
So,
or even just like a dress code. Like the color of pant.
Wear a black shirt and whatever. Yeah, because this one guy, I used to see him all the time. He had this awesome little fro, and he would wear a corduroy suit every time. So he'd be stocking the eggs and the milk in this corduroy suit, and I just really half expected him to just jump out on the dance floor and do one of those poses where you shoot your arm up in the air, like they would in Saturday Night Fever. Yeah, exactly. And he looks like he should have those glasses from Goofy, one of Goofy's friends. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he has those glasses that are like 1.5 inches long. Yeah. I really feel like he needs a pair of those. He needs like a little chain, not a long one, just a little chain so it can flop around a little while he dances. And this guy's stocking eggs. Do you really want to walk up to this guy and be like, "Hi, I'm looking for this item. Could you point me in the direction?" "Yes. Over there." And he does a dance move to point it out to you.
"Anything you need?" And he gives you his card, and it's just like corduroy Eggman.
"No problem. You need anything else, you let me know." "Oh, okay. Mr. Corduroy Man?"
"Khajiit has wares if you have coin."
Actually, you know what? If I got to know him after a while, I'd be, "Hey, Corduroy Man."
"Corduroy. Yo, this corduroy guy hook you up."
I get asked a lot of questions at Canadian Tire, actually. Like, a lot of people think that I work there, which is weird because I'm always wearing this, like, tattered green coat, which doesn't match Canadian Tire at all.
That's their new thing.
But it's always awkward, that transitionary moment between when they think you're an employee and then they realize you're not. Because usually they'll ask a question and I'll say, "Yeah, it's actually up over there." But if I don't know where it is, that's where it gets awkward real quick. Because you go, "Oh, I'm actually not sure, and I don't work here." Right? It's a double whammy. It's like, I can't help you, and also you should find someone who can.
I'm finding myself wanting to act out in public more and more as I grow older. Like the more...
Like throw a tantrum?
No. I mean, like, just sort of, just... like when you're in a room or a bus or something and everybody's quiet, to just, like, yell something. Or, like, you walk by something and someone's like, "Sorry," and it's like, "No, you aren't." Just like...
I'm a big fan, actually, of making comments that people can hear, but sort of making it seem like you're not intending them to hear it. Things like someone's being like that lady with the meetings in the mind. If you're with someone, just look over to them and say, "Wow, some people can be such assholes," right? And then she's kind of walking away like, "Are you talking about me? I don't know. What was that? Was that me?"
What I always want to yell at people is, "It's that important." It is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is.
It's like, yeah, it's totally that important to speak to someone that way. Definitely. I mean, the 30 seconds that they got in your way, totally worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. With traffic, it's even worse.
Oh my God, traffic. I don't drive, but I see a shit ton of bad stuff in traffic. But I also see the reactions from people because I'm not moving. I'm at like the crosswalk or something. So I see you mouthing words off and fucking hitting your steering wheel and shit. Probably the best one I've seen in a long time was this woman was just booking it to get through the light. It goes red. She just screeches up and her window's open because it's summer. She slams like her hands on the wheel and she goes, "Fuck!" And I look over and her hands are like between the wheel, you know, like under the part where you hold and like over
she's
the
like
part.
Reaching for the speedometer.
Basically, she's touching like the thing with her face on the steering wheel and just like fucking just.
She was trying to make a green light.
No, a red light.
Oh yeah, like she was trying to make it before it
turned
red.
And it went red, but then like I guess she would have blown it. I have a feeling she would have blown it if people weren't also there. Like,
crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she just like skirt. Just the way that she screamed "fuck" was so funny to me. I actually turned around with a smile on my face.
I always hear great stories from the actual city, like down in like the heart of Toronto, because obviously it's like any other big city. When you get to the heart of it, you get to this area where the roads are not designed for the level of traffic that we have, and the people are at the highest level of anxiety.
Oh,
especially
yeah.
because all of those roads will say, like, you can turn left between 7 and 8:30, and then you can turn left between 3 and 5 o'clock. But if you're here any other time, you go straight through.
There is
right?
some weird shit going on in Toronto.
So I hear these guys were down there doing a drilling operation. So they had a lane closed, and this guy normally takes a right-hand turn on his morning drive, but he couldn't because that lane was now closed. So I think he had to go to the next light or something like that. So this guy stops his car and is yelling at the drillers because he wants to use the lane, which, even if they said, sure, we'll let you through, would take an hour worth of pack down to get him through. So it's not like, hey, you're in my way. Like, cones and all these things are in the way. And then this guy gets so angry, he gets out of his car with a baseball bat, which is a terrible idea because the number one thing that these drillers always work with is these 5-foot segments of steel rod.
Yeah.
Do you really want to take that on with a baseball bat?
Yeah.
No.
Well, you don't want to go up
And
against...
there's 2 of them.
You never want to go up against, like, physically, up against a group of dudes who has a physical job.
No. Yeah, definitely
like,
not.
They might even be able to stop that baseball bat and take it from you.
Depending
Like,
on who they
drillers
are,
are like big guys. Like, they're strong dudes.
Yeah, well, I've worked with one guy who was like 325 pounds, and this one of those 5-foot steel rods weighs about 30 pounds, and you work with it all day. After a while, it becomes really light.
Yeah.
So you swing that thing like a baseball bat. You imagine how much damage you can do to someone's car.
I can't believe how much stronger I am now that I'm doing a job where I lift like 80 pounds on my shoulder, sometimes 4 hours a day.
It's regular use. That's what your body responds to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, this is a thing Mitch is now doing.
And I also
we need
lift,
to be capable of
I lift
this.
more in one day than I would have worked out an entire week. Just one day. That's 5 days in a row.
Yeah.
Now, the counter to that, the, I guess, natural universe balancing act, is that because I don't get breaks, I don't get a day break like you normally do when you go to the gym, so I'm not fully recovering before the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm still getting much stronger, it's only those 2 days of the weekend where I'm actually like recovering enough to get like
well,
the muscle that I
most
need.
of your progress would come on like a Monday, Tuesday when you have when you're in your best situation. But this guy that hops out of his car to I don't know, move the drill. I don't.
See,
they don't even think.
They just buckle down and they've just decided like I'm gonna solve the problem.
And so the drillers just kind of walk around their drill and just signal the police officer because you're not allowed to work near an intersection with a police officer.
Right.
So then the cop just comes out and arrests the guy. So now your morning commute went from being 10 minutes longer to being a full day longer.
Oh, that's a day.
Right? That's like you said, people don't always have a plan. They're just so mad that they feel like it would be best that I stop traffic and pull out my bat.
Yeah, well, you just like think about it for a moment. The possibility of improving your circumstance with a baseball bat in traffic, it's probably not going to happen unless some asshole is like pulling up behind you and like giving you a hard time. Because I've seen that crazy shit that happens on dash cams, and some dude gets out of his car from behind him and starts walking towards him, and the guy in the front gets out with a baseball bat, and the guy behind just goes right back in his car. So yeah, every so often it might help you, but for the most part, you're not improving your situation with a baseball bat in traffic.
I saw this one dash cam where a guy is behind this car that's going real slow, and he's honking at him. He's trying to get around him, and then the guy just reaches out his window and shows him that he has an MP5 in the car. And so the guy gives him like 7 cars gap. Just, you do whatever you want to do, man.
I imagine at one point someone's put a grenade, just like held a grenade out the window.
I wouldn't doubt it, man. A lot of it comes down to who has the least to lose. Because if you have nothing to lose, you have no reason not to go to war, right? But if you don't want to get hurt or injured, then the other person has the upside, right? Because the guy getting out of the car with the bat probably doesn't have that many things that he's worried about losing compared to the guy who just drives on and takes the 10-minute detour.
Yeah.
Either that or he's totally mentally unstable.
Dude, there's huge traffic at where I worked, and I couldn't walk the 3 minutes it would normally take me, and it took me an extra like 15-20 minutes. It was brutal. But I got over it. I wasn't yelling at the construction guys like fuck you.
Yeah. A lot of people are really bad at tracing what I would call true fault. Like who is actually at fault and who is just part of the unfortunate circumstance.
That's what I love about that Bill Burr joke, where he talks about when he goes to a restaurant or whatever, and he's like, he buys a drink, and the guy just gives him an empty cup and just points like, "You do it over there."
Oh, yeah,
He's like, "I just want to choke the little kid. I don't want to choke his manager. I just want to choke all the way up the line until I finally find that CEO who's responsible. And when I bust in that room holding that fucking stupid like top to the lid, and he knows what this is about. He's been waiting for it for years." Like, I love that he recognizes that it's not the kid pointing's fault, that he has to do his own drink, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the same when people get bad, like the wrong food or their product doesn't work, and they call and they yell at the receptionist.
Right.
I understand if you call the receptionist to say, "Hey, I would like to speak to someone very calmly and collectly about the problem with my thing," and they say, "Well, what's wrong with your thing?" And you say, "Oh, okay, well, this is like, can I not speak to a customer service department?" "Well, no, why don't you tell me now?" Listen, lady.
Lady.
Then you can freak out and let her have it. But you can't just let someone have it because you perceive that they are the representative of the thing you don't like.
Yeah. And the thing is, the chances of the person you're talking to on the phone having a grand effect on what you will then get later is actually pretty high. Chances are, especially if you're talking to food service people, because I was that person, and I think a lot of them didn't realize I was the one who was actually going to touch their food later on. And it's like, "Listen, buddy, I know where you live because you told me."
That's such a creepy thing to say.
"I know extra information, like which door you'd prefer to use, that you have a dog, that there's a garage. I know a lot of things about you. And I'm about to touch the thing you put in your mouth. Think about that before you talk to me that way again, because I'm not going to do anything about it. But fuck, are you ever going to run into someone eventually?"
That will. Well, it's the same thing.
It.
Someone who doesn't have anything to lose has no reason not to go to war with you.
Most of the people that I worked with had a problem with customers, just at all. Not questioning that this might be why I'm here, to serve customers. They're like, "Fuck customers." No, fuck you. Get out of here.
Well, that's also, it's just part of that problem where they're blaming the customer.
Yeah.
The customer is not the reason that you are working the job or that the job is running the way it is.
No.
In a way, the customer supports the business, but each individual
Not
customer.
even in a way.
No.
The customer is the lifeblood of any business.
Yes, but what I meant is each individual customer is not the one allowing Wendy's to operate. They're not the one that gets KFC to be a thing, right? They're a small, tiny cog in this huge global eating market, right? So you can't, fuck these customers. You're a customer.
Well, yeah.
You are going to finish your shift. You're going to come around to the front of the counter. You're going to buy the bullshit you peddle to other people. You're going to inconvenience your own employees, like your peers, and walk home. So don't hate customers.
We used to make people do it themselves.
They make their own food.
If I can get back here, motherfucker.
See, interesting that you say that, because in some places that works, but in other places there's only certain roles that actually make food. When you go to a McDonald's, there's only a couple of people that make the food, so that's not even really an option.
Well, and we had rules at the last place I worked at where you didn't, if you're an employee, you didn't order between, like, for the busiest times there. So there'd be times where they would just sneak it in. They wouldn't ask. They would just put it through as an order, and then just hopefully no one would notice it. And there'd be times where I would notice it, and I would go and I would remove it from the orders and not say anything.
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, "Where's my food?" And I'm like, "What food?" Like, "The food I ordered." And I'm like, it's 5 o'clock, big guy. You can't order food. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's
and just
amazing.
Fucking leave it.
That's amazing. I love not telling them either.
Just fuck with them.
So their shift's over. They're sitting there.
So what are you gonna do?
Waiting for food that's not
You
coming.
can't make the food. You're not in that position. So guess you means you have to pay full price. I don't know. Gonna have to tell you.
Oh my god.
Like, people think that they have the control because they're the customer. I have the food. That's the thing you want.
Yeah.
All of that attitude from you comes from is with the intention of getting what you want. But I have it. I don't have to give it to you.
Part of the challenge is that we have seriously separated those who benefit from the income from those who deal with the day-to-day. Because that's where you do get, a smaller business. If someone came in and tried to treat your employees like crap, you could come out and say, "Listen, ma'am, here's a voucher, or here's your money back. Get the fuck out of my store and don't return." And that lady will learn from that interaction. Either A, she will crawl back in there a few days later hoping that you've forgotten about this and be much nicer, or she won't come back, but she'll have learned her lesson, hopefully.
Well,
Whereas, but at least she was taught the lesson. She may
Right.
not have learned, but she
Yes.
was taught.
yes. That's
Whereas you can walk into a Wendy's, McDonald's, a KFC, a Pizza Hut, any fast food chain, and what the upper management that live out in Seattle or California will tell you is that the customer's always right, no matter how terrible they are.
something said the way
Right?
the way that you put it is the customer is always right is a statement made by people in warm offices,
Yes.
people not behind counters wearing aprons. And I always want to say it to somebody. It's like when you talk to me about a policy and it's like, buddy, I'm wearing an apron. Do you think I made this policy? Think about it for a second.
Dude, that should just be a hashtag. Hashtag I'm wearing an apron. What do you expect from me?
Like, you really think the policymakers are throwing on aprons? Like, come on, dude. Think about it for a second. You're a smart person. I know you think you are.
This isn't Mitch's Deli
No,
Shop.
it's not.
This is a large chain franchised company. You know, the decision was made miles away from here.
When I worked there, I had this idea for an animated series about a guy who ran his own place, and just how many times customers have no ground to stand on when they realize that I have all the control. Where it's like, I want to speak to your manager, and it's like, I'm the manager. Okay, fine. Then your supervisor. Yeah, I'm the only guy who works here. Like, okay, fine. The owner. I'm like, that's me.
Yeah, I own this building.
Yeah, did you notice that my name, Mitch, here, Mitch on the sign up front, Mitch.
Did you not see the sign on the wall that says we reserve the right to refuse service to assholes?
Yeah,
because I'm going to enforce it.
We reserve the right to Mitch. Just end of sentence.
We will Mitch
Like,
if we want.
At that point, it's like, okay, well, I want my money back. And it's like, I was here. I saw it. I'm the employee and the owner. So you can have your money, but I'm not going to give you your product.
Yeah.
That used to be the weirdest thing, man. Like when I first started there, was that you're like the amount of times that we gave someone's money back and their food. It was crazy. It was
We're
like
teaching them to do that.
and they knew that they could do it too. Now, it was good for us because I've worked in a place before where you basically fight customers for shit. Where you're like, oh, something was wrong on your side. Give me that back and I'll give you the new one. Which, on paper, makes a lot of sense. If you got a product that didn't have the thing, then you don't want it and you should be able to give it back. But it's food. So let's say you wait half an hour, and that's a minimum, for a pizza, and it doesn't have one of the toppings that you paid for. And now you paid a lot of money for that topping. Like, it's not $3 worth of bacon on there. It's like, it's probably like 60 cents worth of bacon, but you paid for it because you wanted it. And you don't get bacon. So you call them and they're like, great, hold on to that pizza, don't eat it. Okay, you made the mistake. I didn't get what I paid for. Now I have to wait an extra half an hour for the exact same thing that I wanted in the first place. That's a terrible experience for the customer. So, and you can't sell a pizza or any food that you've already given somebody. So it comes back and it just gets tossed in the garbage, or the employees eat it, which every place will say employees are not allowed to eat it unless they purchase it themselves, right?
Yeah.
So the best circumstance for the customer's experience is to say, hold on to that pizza, eat it if you'd like. We're going to make you a new one, send it right out to you, no charge. That way, you have made up for the mistake. The first example is terrible because you're not making up for anything.
Yeah, all you're doing is giving them what you agreed to, but late.
You're treating them like kind of second class. Like, oh, something didn't go well, so let me rectify the issue, but with no compensation.
It's a little different with pizza than it would be with a lot of other foods, though. You know, for example, you sit down in a McDonald's and your food's wrong. You come back to the counter. Here, give me your burger.
Yeah, a little
right.
different,
So there are situations like that because it does make sense as a business to tell your customers, we will give you what we agreed to give you and we will compensate you if we make mistakes, but you can't just game the system. That's not how this works, right?
And in like, you can't just bring a toaster back and keep the toaster because it broke and then get the new toaster.
Yeah, and then fix your toaster.
But
and get a second
in the case where you're delivering food for somebody or it's a long wait or something like that, you should let them keep the thing at least until you get there with the new product, with the thing that they were supposed to get. And that's, a guy was telling me that, you know, for all of the ways we have for making up for issues, he said what customers really want in the end is just what they asked for.
Yeah, in the first place.
Not a superb version of it, not some gold shining standard. They just want the product they asked for at the time that they were told it would take. That's all it is. extra stuff is great. Extra product, extra dips and drinks and all that kind of stuff. 2 pizzas for the price of 1 is all great. But in the end, people are so much more satisfied with exactly what they asked for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's this one place. It's an Italian place, and it's a chain, but it's done a little differently. So it's called Zio's, which so Zio means uncle in Italian.
Oh, I think I've seen that before.
And so the place is called Giovanni's Zio's. So it's, Uncle Giovanni's. That's supposed to be the idea. And that way, it's run like a franchise, but each of the restaurants is like a small family-style restaurant run by an individual. So they do have those options where you're not going to just let a client berate your staff, because your staff are generally a lot closer to you than they would be at a regular franchise. I just think it would be cool if that model could work its way out to more styles of restaurants. Like there's a burrito place called Mucho Burrito. If they had something like that, where rather than just being a faceless, nameless organization, they tried to have each place have an owner who literally takes ownership of the work that goes on there, rather than having one guy who owns 7 of them in a greater area and he just drives from place to place.
See, that's interesting that you say that, because of that one and the other burrito place we go to, Mucho is so much better. Like it is a very similar price, but they are lightning fast and the product is better. It's amazing, and the people don't seem to be that
miserable.
Unhappy. One time we had a pretty bad time where like this woman was trying to like she was like cooking the burrito in that like press thing, and she was just fucking like Batista bombing it.
I do remember.
And it was like getting stuck and burned, and she was getting angrier and
like
angrier.
An RKO.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, it's like from the top rope. Boom! It was like, baby, it's a burrito.
And the last thing you want is your burrito just becoming like this projectile where all the stuff comes out of either end.
No, she was just cooking the pita pit.
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know why I call her baby. I would never call somebody baby.
Yeah, weren't we actually just talking about how it's weird to refer to people in those ways?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not on the show, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other place is just horrible. I get one burrito in the time it takes for 2, and it's not even as good. And for some reason, their Skip the Dishes app, not Mucho, I haven't actually got Mucho, but their Skip the Dishes app at the other one just forgets about certain products, like salsa. How do you forget about the salsa in a burrito? Are you going to take the spaghetti out of the spaghetti?
It is interesting that we're going into an era where every time there's a new idea, everyone's on top of it. So Uber came out, but then so did Lyft, and there's another service, what's it called? It's like Majestic or something like that. And then same with Skip the Dishes. Skip the Dishes is not the only one. There's Uber Eats, there's Skip the Dishes, and actually maybe this magnificent thing that I'm thinking about, I believe it's actually food delivery. But it's just it's unique that back in the day, when something opened, like a new restaurant, there was only one way to consume that restaurant. You go, you buy things, and then you go home. Whereas we're going into this era where every new thing, it'll be like, oh yeah, did you take a taxi home? No, I took an Uber. And you say Uber, but you don't really mean Uber. You actually took a Lyft, but now that's the new term, is Uber, right? Or we could get to a point where it's,
Kleenex,
I ordered I ordered this on Skip the Dishes, and it's like, did you actually use Skip the Dishes? Oh, no, I used Uber Eats. But that's the new word, right? That's what Netflix did. Netflix is basically the word for streaming in a lot of people's eyes. Right?
Like YouTube or Google.
Yes. Well, Google's a special one. It really is.
What's interesting is that there's another one. It might be Yahoo. And they actually have a lot of users, like a surprisingly percent-wise of
search engine.
Yeah, I was surprised how high it was, but and it's only because people just don't like. It's mostly like people who just don't have technology understanding, and Yahoo comes with their thing, so they just use Yahoo. But but Google takes up so much of the market. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Google is getting to the point where we're really going to have a global conversation about what Google is. Because Google's gotten in trouble for a few things that no one ever thought about, but now seem to be very clear abuses of their power.
Interesting.
So an example is that Google would put their own ads above ads that other people were paying for on their platform.
That's not okay.
Exactly. And they now have a targeted shopping page. But that shopping page puts Google items above other items. And in a way, you can't blame them for using their platform for their own benefit. The problem is that Google is going beyond a private company. It's going to this weird stratospheric level that we've never seen before. That's why everyone's having these conversations. Should we be regulating them? Should they be treated like utilities? What kind of access do we have to guarantee to them?
Utility thing. I imagine there was that changeover for water companies, right? They used to be just water companies.
It's not all private either.
Right.
Like, there are still instances where, like, for example, Ontario Hydro Generation is privately owned. So I bet you that's an ongoing thing, but they're regulated. That's the big thing. Regulation is the thing that makes everything consistent, or at least attempts to make things consistent. So imagine when electricity first came out, you either buy electricity from Edison or Edison comes to your house and murders your family. That was like the deal.
What?
Well, Edison was kind of like, he was kind of like the electric mobster, if you will. Yeah, like Darth Sidious. He's basically the polar opposite of Tesla. Tesla wanted everything to be open source, free, available for more development. Edison wanted everything to be controlled and in his pocket. And so...
What's the government if they can't govern, right?
No, yeah. So imagine that
They're just meant.
changeover where you go from electricity being generated by the only people that know how to do it to now, 2018, which is obviously over 100 years later. But now we have significant regulation on how electricity is to be generated, distributed, what the safety precautions are. So eventually we'll get there. Eventually things like Facebook will be regulated. It's just a matter of when we're going to do it, how are we going to do it, how far can we step in on what is essentially private property. Digital private property.
Facebook is so crooked. It's amazing. Like,
yeah,
what started as a way to connect people together has turned into
a way to divide them.
Sure, that too.
Sorry, that was a little. I had to go for the poetry.
But they have this very little content on Facebook is actually uploaded to Facebook. It is linked from real websites that actually make stuff, and without any real accountability. And Facebook for a while was actually paying people to make content on YouTube, even though they were just straight up stealing it. And it was really gross, and I don't know if they're still doing it. But like, if you see a 4x3 video on Facebook and it has writing at the top and the bottom of the screen, almost guaranteed stolen.
Yeah, there's a 95+%.
Nobody
chance.
uploads to YouTube in 4x3 with writing at the top of the screen with a 16:9 video in the middle of a 4x3 video that is uploaded in 4x3. No, fucking nobody does that. And you might see somebody every so often intentionally make a meme.
Yes,
but no, for the most part, that is stolen from someone who actually made it.
Well, they tried to fund this program in India where they would give free smartphones to the Indian people, but the smartphones could access the internet, but they could only access Facebook.
Ooh.
And so India just said, no, we're not going to do that. In fact, India's actually gone one step further. Any personal information that you collect on an Indian citizen has to be stored in India.
Oh.
Yeah, so that means that the Indian government can put a subpoena on that information and get access to it. So rather than, your and my information being beamed across the internet and being ended up somewhere in England or in the States or, honestly, who knows, literally anywhere, now that information has to stay relegated within Indian borders. That's an interesting move because it's impossible to track that. Imagine how much surveillance they would require. They would need a whole department of people focusing on that just to be able to,
interesting.
That's why they usually do self-regulation. Whenever something is like really hard to regulate, they usually let the industry do it themselves. And you can imagine what the industry does.
Well, that's
that power.
That's where the YouTube copyright system comes into play.
Yeah, it's self-regulation.
What's it called? I keep wanting to say NCIS, but that's not right. It's the Digital Millennium, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMC, no, something like that. But Digital Millennium Copyright Act or something. Anyway, came out in like the early 2000s. They didn't quite know how it would be applied now, but basically, if you have something like YouTube where other people are uploading something, if in order for you to not be held liable for what other people upload, you have to have your own internal system for figuring out what is copyright claimed.
Okay.
DMCA, that's it.
This is an American law.
It applies to us as well.
Curious.
Well, sorry. Because YouTube is from the States, it applies to us as well.
Yes, but it's an American law. Yes.
Right, yeah, as far as I know. Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that's what it is. So, so YouTube had to have figured out a system because there's so much stuff uploaded to YouTube, you can't go through it on your own. You have to make a robot do it, right?
Yeah.
Or many robots. So now we have a system that is so easy to manipulate that Epic Games copyright claimed themselves on their own video. And Jim Sterling has a friend who makes original music, and somebody copyright claimed his original music because they basically just took the music and then just put it back through the system and was like, that's mine. Yeah.
Yeah, now that... So the first one I would actually say is a good sign. Epic Games flagging their own thing.
Right.
Because that, to me, that is a sign that whatever systematic problem is being presented is now starting to cannibalize itself. It's starting to attack itself again, right? It's coming full circle, where it's become so intrusive that it's actually tripping over its own feet. And that I personally find can be a good sign for large systems.
Yeah.
For an example, the crazy PC culture movement that you see going on right now, where everything is moving in a direction of progressivism, whether it makes sense or not, is come so full circle that you now have people who are in that movement, people who are ultra progressive, attacking other ultra progressive people for not being ultra progressive enough. But I know you shake your head for all those not watching, but that's a good thing, because at least those people are now not all focused on attacking other people.
Right.
They're now infighting, which means that their message is not as strong. They're not able to spread it to as many people. But the second one, being able to take something someone made and then use it against them, how does YouTube not recognize? Yeah, how does this copyright system work? I
have no idea.
You just say, this is my copyrighted information, and they don't verify that at all. They just say, fine.
Probably.
And that, I think, could be an issue, because you should have to prove that the source material is valid, that you have some sort of patent or some sort of copyright, trademark, or whatever.
Even worse than that, if you claim something's yours, you get the money until they figure out whether it's right, but then you still keep the money. It's not like, okay, well, you owe 70% of what this made to the person who owns it. No, you get that 70% because you claimed it. And then that got changed. But it didn't get changed until a lot of YouTubers made a lot of fucking fuss about it. So now what happens is, if it's been claimed by somebody and there's advertisements on it, that money goes into an escrow account.
Yeah, which only makes sense.
Yeah, nobody gets it until it's resolved, which is how it should have been in the first place.
Yeah, whoever set that first strategy is literally either incompetent or in cahoots with those who would steal money.
It's got to be.
Those are the only options.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just ridiculous that this behavior continues, and that we're now starting to get into the next frontier, which is, what are you and aren't you allowed to say? Right? And are people allowed to take you off YouTube? Because this has now become the new question, because Alex Jones was taken off of YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook all at the same time. Which is obviously a coordinated attack, but that totally being beside the point, they deplatformed him because they didn't like what he was saying.
Right.
At the end of the day, whether or not what he's saying is heinous is irrelevant. It's because they did not like what he said. They took him off of there. So that really starts to make you ask the question, are they upholding the principles of free speech, being one of the largest distributors of information in the world? Right? If anybody should be a paragon of free speech, it should be them. Right? The only reason they don't want you as a creator to have free speech is because they want to sell ad slots. If there was no advertisers, YouTube wouldn't have to kick anybody off, because they could just say, nope, fuck you, we're keeping him. Nope, fuck you, we're keeping him, and it wouldn't matter.
Right.
It's only those advertising dollars that actually give them that real world input. Yeah, that's what's scary about it all, is that it's not really about the creators and the content and the community. It really is about the ad dollars.
Creators make up a very small percentage of YouTube content. Like, we're talking like 1%.
So what is most of YouTube content?
Just everyday people.
You see, I don't understand that. Who's watching that shit?
Everyone. Videos like that get huge views. Just like
No, but like what?
just like I don't know, like fucking cat does something stupid. Fucking 14 million views. And that's just some dude, and he put it up there. He's not a creator.
Right, just okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, yeah. And I do imagine there's quite a bit of that. There's also quite a bit of stuff that never gets viewed by anybody ever, right? This thing's people just releasing videos to the abyss.
You and I have made 700 and something videos.
But we're creators. We fall into that 1%.
Right. 700 and something videos at 60,000 views across all of them. I made 2 videos on a different channel, Minute Tutorials, and together have 90,000 views.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's not always about, like, there's an example, like creator versus creator. Like, I threw 2 videos up and never touched it again for years, and it's done significantly better than what we are actively working on for the whole time since uploading those 2 videos on another channel.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially like the comparison. It's like you got one thing where people seek the tutorial information that I had, and it puts the thing into a generated
loop, yeah.
Loop. Whereas we generate something that we're trying to make into entertainment, and it's not going anywhere because it's not getting enough people to put it in that loop.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is the rich get richer, right?
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
what it is.
Yeah.
The more you're seen, the more you'll be seen, and therefore the more you'll get seen.
Will Smith has a great YouTube channel, and I think his content is actually much better than most YouTubers. But he didn't exactly start from the bottom when it comes to YouTube. He definitely had a huge boost.
Oh yeah, he started with millions of people.
Yeah,
and that's inevitable. But that's also why growing through word of mouth doesn't work anymore, because word of mouth implies, I tell you and you tell someone else and that person tells someone else.
It can work with the right people.
No, but I don't even consider that word of mouth. If somebody who has 70,000 followers discovers our channel and says, hey, this channel's cool, and then they tweet it out to their 70,000 followers, I don't consider that word of mouth. That's gone totally beyond word of mouth. Word of mouth is, I heard from a guy that I trust and know, and he said this thing. Now that's what it is. It's networking in a way.
You want word of mouth to literally be from the mouth.
I guess so. It just seems that
if I texted you,
there's a difference between.
If I texted you about a YouTube channel that I liked,
I would still consider that word of mouth.
Interesting.
Yeah, to me, word of mouth means that you have this direct line between the two mouths, whether or not they're actually in the same room. To me, it just doesn't seem.
It's different when it's a large group.
Yeah, because let's say I release something out to our 5 followers. I don't consider that word of mouth, because I'm distributing it to this large group rather than giving any one of those individuals that message. Whereas, as you scale that up, it becomes more and more obvious why I say that. So if I imagine I tweeted to 1,000 people, suddenly each of them is getting 1/1000th of the personal touch that they'd get if I texted you directly. Right. Now 1 million people. It's not word of mouth anymore. That is digital media. That's what Kevin Hart does so well. He's really, really good at advertising on social media, but I just don't consider it to be the same thing. And I also don't think that there's the same power in it because, there is more power through numbers, but there's less power for each of the individuals. So Kevin Hart tweets something out, and if Kevin Hart were to say to you individually, hey, you should check this thing out, you would watch it. Not even a question. You would be like, Kevin Hart said it was funny? I'm definitely watching that. But if he tweets, hey, this thing's funny, lots of people will do it. But to each of the individuals who gets that message, it's not nearly as powerful. It doesn't have the same connection. It doesn't make me go, oh, well, if Kevin liked it, I'm going to watch it. You see what I'm saying, though, that it's quality. It's quality versus quantity. Oh, okay. You get a lot of quantity out of digital advertising, but you don't get the same quality.
That power you're talking about, the more people there are, the least power each person has.
Yeah.
The perfect example of that is the way that the American voting system works. If you live in a small state with half the number of people, each person's vote counts for twice as much as the other person. It's so strange to me.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that are strange about the way their election system works.
That is such a flawed system. Like,
And
I don't even know how to like properly describe it. Like
you're exasperated and you don't have to vote.
Right. And I don't have to be part of like their voting decisions, but should not every of the 300 million, let's just say it's 250 million voters, should not each person's vote be counted the same? Like that's like the classic thing about voting. It's like everybody's counts, you know. Oh, mine doesn't count. Well, if everybody thought that way, blah, blah, blah. But it's not even the truth, because some people have a vote that's like 5 times more value than another person's vote.
Yeah. Well, in a way, it's not that much more ridiculous than what we do here. Here, you vote for a local official, and then that local official goes to Parliament to vote for your Prime Minister. So it's this weird understanding that, so in Canada, technically, there is nothing that says the majority party, the leader of the majority party is the Prime Minister. There's no actual rule that says that.
It just usually works out.
It's just, that's how it goes, yes. Because if you were the Prime Minister and you didn't have any party members to support you, everything you put forth would be shut down. So that's why that's what we end up doing. So it's this system where I gotta vote for this local schmo who may or may not really have my interests in order, because I know that the guy at the top of the line that Mr. Schmo represents is good. It seems like such a weird, backward system in which we're doing the same kind of thing, where I'm voting in my little jurisdiction here, and you're voting in your little jurisdiction there, but what if there's 200,000 people in mine and there's only 80,000 in yours? Your vote means more. And that's why I think it would be cool to have
stop like large places from having a bigger sway on
than smaller places,
right?
Yes. Which makes a lot of sense, because the things you deal with in a city are different than the things you deal with out in the country.
Right.
For example, people in Vancouver all voted to end the bear hunt because they don't get eaten by bears.
Right.
Whereas the people out in the country who actually deal with the bears, who have livestock that get killed by the bears, who are actively afraid of the bears, they don't get as much of a say if it's all based off population numbers.
I really think that in order to vote properly on a decision like that, you should have to be in like a cage with a bear. Like even with a separated, you know, even with a fence between the two of you, you know, like there's a little podium, you know, your little voting thing, and you have to like put the hood over your head thing while you sign, and this fucking bear is right in the next cage. Like, tell me you're not fucking terrified of just one of those things.
What would be kind of interesting is if you had to do a polygraph test, not that this is practical, before you voted, and you had to answer the question, do you feel prepared to take this vote? And if you fail the polygraph test, you don't get to vote.
The problem with polygraphs is that
they're not accurate.
Yeah, the guy who made them said that they're not to be used the way that he knew they would be. He's like, it's too easy, because it's all based on a baseline. And if you fool the baseline, you can fool the entire system.
Yeah, but at the same time, there would be, 20% of the voters show out? Like, all of a sudden, all these people would be like, there's no way I'll pass it, I'm not informed.
And they're trying really hard right now to make sure people vote, because there's so many reasons. People have these, like, single reasons why they shouldn't, you know? I don't know where to vote. I wouldn't know who to vote for. My vote doesn't count. There's all these, like, little...
That middle one is a valid reason.
What's that?
I don't know who to vote for.
Right.
Don't just go cast a vote. Well, don't just say, well, this guy's name sounds cooler than this other guy's name, so I'll just vote for this guy.
Yeah.
But the other ones, I don't know where to vote, all that stuff, those can be remedied. But it does seem like it's unusual that you're allowed to vote whether or not you're informed. And
what's your right? It's your right to make a decision.
To make an uninformed decision. It is your right, yes. Which is bizarre. But that's why everyone has to vote, because on the whole, there's enough forward-thinking people, hopefully, that the right decision will be made. And that is why they do referendums. So referendums, they actually poll every single person. For example, when Quebec tried to split off from Canada.
You mean the multiple times?
Yeah, but when the last time, they held a referendum and everybody voted on it. And it failed by the narrowest of margins, I remember. It was like 0.5%.
Oh,
it was,
geez.
Yeah. This half of the country was absolutely all for it. This other half of the country was absolutely against it. And guess where those people lived? Not in the same places.
It's such an emotional fuck you response to want a province to leave your country. Like the as far as I know, maybe you can correct me on this, is there any positive benefit to the other provinces for Quebec to leave Canada?
No, there would be no benefit to the other provinces necessarily, save for we would likely abandon our bilingualism.
So
for good reason too.
So removing a language from the country and being able to say get out of here is the only two real reasons why any of the other provinces would want them to go.
Yeah, because we'd now be cut off from a major trade route from east to west.
Right. And it would hugely...
We'd have to pay tariffs going across those borders.
Yeah, it'd be
There's
awful.
a chance that Quebec could go to the United States, become a state.
Right.
Not that they would ever accept French people, but that's beside the point. However, we would actually save a tremendous amount of money by not doing everything in English and French. I really
But
believe
would we
that.
lose that amount in tariffs
Yes,
and trade
absolutely.
issues? Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it would basically only benefit Quebec. Or would it?
No, not even necessarily,
It's like-
because
it's
now
the-
they're going to pay tariffs in the same way.
So it's the Brexit situation.
It
Where
is.
people think that it makes sense to leave, even
Yes.
though there's actually no good reason for it.
The major upside, really, quite honestly, would be the removing of the bilingualism, because we don't speak that language here for significant, ongoing, economic or otherwise purposes.
Tu parles français?
Tu parles pas français?
Je ne parle pas
Yeah.
à français.
Yeah, je ne parle pas français.
Un petit peu.
Yeah, un peu de français. And
I actually want to learn French. I don't know if that's a good thing to mention, but
I wouldn't have a problem learning French. But one of the challenges does become having a province like BC, where it is literally thousands of miles from Quebec. Meaning, to get to Quebec, I don't know how many hours it takes, but it's definitely upwards of 15 hours.
And you know there is at least one Canadian super far from Quebec who's like, I don't fucking care what you do. You're all the way over there.
But
how does it affect me?
But all of their signs have to be printed in these two languages because we're bilingual across the country. All of their government employees of a certain level have to speak French.
That's rough.
So there's all of these things that we're paying for and doing that are not necessarily for a valuable reason. So that's the only good reason.
Because I don't really agree with either. I don't really agree with removing it or keeping it. Like, I think that there's downsides to both. To say, like, we have a predominantly French-speaking province and that the rest of us, that government officials in other parts of the country shouldn't speak French, I would say is wrong.
Yes.
But I also think it's wrong to impose one province onto 11 and 2 territories, or 10 and 2 territories.
Really, the only option is to go back to 1867 and say, sorry, you want your province to be French? Yeah, that's funny. Anyways, moving on with our 13 English provinces.
But we have it's 11 and 2 territories.
There was only 7 provinces back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or even less maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah, it started with very, very few.
That was back in the time when we won the War of 1812 and burned the White House down?
1867 was a long time after that.
1867.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either way, we won, right?
Depends who you ask.
I mean, I'm Canadian, so I'm going to say we won.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I bring that up with my Colorado friends all the time.
Do they think they won?
Is
that what they teach them in school?
I mean, but both of us recognize that that's how it, like, we both know
that's the
that
thing.
both sides think that they won.
This is one thing that bothered me, though. They said that the border moved something like, the most the border moved was 3 kilometers in some locations, which is not a lot. Even though it sounds like a huge area, on the scale of borders, it's nothing. And I remember asking my teacher, like, which way did it move? Because that, at the end of the day, if you just count all the, like, little individual squares of land.
It's like he stole it's like $1. It's like, it's just $1, but it's my dollar.
You know, imagine we come down to it and, you know, the Americans, at the end of the day, when everything was mapped out, the Americans had 1 additional square kilometer than they did to begin with. And it's like, okay, well, then they won. That's it. They got their kilometer.
Have you heard of that place?
They got their land.
I think it's in the east. I think it's close to Egypt. There is a place where, because of the way that the borders were drawn by different places, there's like 3 neighboring countries or territories or whatever. And there's a section that they all want. So all of them say that section is theirs. But there's a section right next to it, and all of them say it's not theirs.
Yeah, no one wants it.
So there's a triple territory next to no man's land.
Yeah, it is
surrounded by a whole bunch of things going on.
It is somewhere in northeastern Africa / southwestern Asia, yeah. And I really appreciate that small area of land where everyone's just like, nope.
In The Man in the High Castle, in an alternate universe where Axis power wins, the majority, like 2/3 of America, is owned by Germany, and then a little, like a quarter of it, is owned by Japan, and then down the center is the sliver of no man's land, and you can live there. It's basically the Wild West, where law is taken into the hands of the individuals in that place, but everything else kind of runs the same way. Like it doesn't feel like the Wild West, but it's run that way.
Weird, but it's modern, right?
Yeah, it's modern. Yeah, everything's modern.
I always find old-timey values with modern technology is the weirdest combination. Like, I'm reading The Handmaid's Tale right now, and everything in it is archaic. The way they treat women, the way they go about their business, the way they have, like, tokens that you can exchange for things. They're all very poor because their country, I'm sure, is under these crazy sanctions. But then they're in an elevator. And that just, it's so weird. It's like, what do you mean you're in an elevator?
Yeah, I had trouble figuring out what time period that was taken in, because the place that they live kind of looks like there's certain places that look the way that they did, like...
Oh, from you're watching it, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like some places like London look like they did like 50, 60 years ago, even further than that. Some places look like they did 300 years ago.
And that's even what she says, is that, you know, all these old things, they were old before the change came about. You know, she calls all the period in time before all this nonsense happened, she calls it the other time. And so she says, yeah, these things were already ancient when the other time ended, and they're just more ancient now.
In Walking Dead, they call it before.
Yeah, generically.
Yeah.
Well,
where were you before?
That's just a version to wanting to address what's going on. No one wants to say before the infection, before the outbreak. They'd just rather not discuss it. They know. If you say, "Oh, where were you before?" and you say, "Before what?" Before fucking breakfast. Like, what? What do you think I mean?
Some characters have done better. Like they're in better. They're in better standing. They have more control. They enjoy themselves more. Like Negan is such a fascinating character because he seems to actually like this world better.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I am too damn good at this to die now. Like I fucking love that guy. Like I love that this is like the time of the villain.
Oh, like, this era of our society.
Tom Hiddleston as Loki, the Joker.
I don't know about Tom Hiddleston. I'm not gonna put him.
No, people love him.
Yeah, but he's not a true villain. Not the way the Joker is.
They liked him when he was a villain, though. Like Loki stops being the villain later on in the series, but they liked him. I remember like he got popular in the movie where he's the villain. In
the first one, yes, right. That's true. That is true.
But I love that because villains are most of the time way more interesting. Like Spider-Man, man, he is not nearly as cool as half of the villains that he goes up against.
And he's not as cool as Punisher.
No, Punisher's cool.
Is he an anti-hero? I don't even think he's an anti-hero.
He's just not a hero.
Yeah.
Because he starts his punishing thing purely on vengeance. Yeah. Most of the time, like with stories, you have the brief moment of vengeance. You know, Spider-Man goes after the bad guy that killed his uncle and shit like that. But the Punisher goes the whole second season of Daredevil is his vengeance thing, and it finishes up right before his like actual starting of his story. But I love that there's so much time spent on him just fucking people up,
all on vengeance.
Have you seen the Punisher show?
No,
it's great. It's quite
no.
Good. I'm finding that Marvel, like, they're making so much stuff now that it's
too much.
It's no longer all like worth the same amount of time to me.
And it's not as cohesive as it once was.
No,
there's too many things.
They just have so many people working on that shit, right? Yeah. But it's still amazingly consistent for how many things that they've made in the last 10 years. But Punisher's definitely on the list, like up there with Jessica Jones season 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen season 2 of that either.
What's his name? John Bernthal does such a good job.
So good.
Like he definitely makes you like the Punisher from the films with what's his name? Travolta was pretty decent, but this one's like he pulls off some Bourne level shit. Like it's just very well directed action. It's not just nonsense and sparks going off and shit.
Yeah, I really appreciate realism within a framework. That's something that is so important to me, is that you pick your framework. Whatever you decide is realistic, that's all fine. But then you need to work within that framework. You can't keep changing it. Right? If your character is uber strong, that's great. But he can't just be weak when it makes sense for your story. He must be uber strong. That must be part of your lore.
Yeah, Bright. I keep bringing up how many holes there are in this film. In Bright, the elves are so goddamn strong that they're like throwing dudes across the room. And then one time, I think they hold, like they're strong enough to like toss Will Smith around. But then at the end of the film, he just grabs her arms, like it's nothing, and just like throws her back. And like I think I even holds her down or something like that. She goes from being like throw him across the room strong to just regular person strong. And there's no, it's not like she became weak throughout the fight. They just didn't care.
Yeah. I really like when a character does badass things, but I want to know that that character is doing those badass things in spite of their realistic limits. I don't want like a Hancock type character. Hancock is only an interesting movie, and that's even debatable, because of the story that's built around it and the underlying reason for his powers. If they just had a movie like, all right, this guy who just can't be killed and can do whatever he wants, he can fly around, he's super strong, it would be very boring. Where you'd need to introduce some sort of kryptonite in a
which is the sort of the fatal issue with Superman as a television show or a movie. I think he works great in comics because comics are usually about complicated themes, and that's what Superman often does. He deals with like the genocide of his people, and shit like that.
I think they could without kryptonite do a very good Superman movie. I just think they won't, because it is easier to involve the kryptonite.
It's easier to punch Zod across the like across New York for like a couple minutes, as if anything that they're doing to each other is having any impact. Like, I
think it would have been way better if that fight took place in outer space, personally.
Yeah, it also would have been great if you somehow explained that two, like, why do two Kryptons punching each other not hurt each other? What's going on there? How can you be that strong on both sides of it? Like, it's like,
well, if you look at a really high level UFC fight, those people can beat the shit out of each other,
well, and they can keep going
for minutes at a time.
But eventually they're done.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Zod doesn't die until he snaps his neck. Why is that punch not snapping his neck? He's moving him like 6 blocks with each shot, and it doesn't snap his neck, or even they're barely even affected by it. They're being pushed around for a bit.
Well, and that is what so they're not breathing heavily. They don't get battered. Yeah. So I see what you're saying. They're invulnerable right up until the point that they're dead.
Right.
This is what would have been. The problem was they had to destroy New York because that was like part of the deal. And was there something in New York they were battling around?
Yes, because the Kryptonians had some shit on both sides of the planet. They were like smashing it.
Oh, and one of them was in New York.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems to me. Actually, you know what? A better example of a stupid scene is in the Avengers, the Age of Ultron. So in the second Avengers, the Hulk fight that takes place in, I believe it's Mexico City.
Yeah.
I understand that there's only so much you can do, like, because Tony tries to get him out of the city. He tries to fly him out of the city, and it doesn't work. But what I didn't understand is why he didn't just throw him.
Yeah.
Like, why he's like, oh, I will very slowly drag you to the edge of the city. And then at the end, he's thinking, okay, well, instead of just pile driving him into the ground really hard, I'm going to pile drive him through this whole building that everyone, like, had to create,
like
and
that was going to impact him at all.
Well, in fact, it would have slowed down his descent. So rather than slamming him into the ground really fast, he would do it not quite as fast because of all these floors he had to break through.
At this point, they should probably know that you actually don't defeat Hulk with force.
But it worked.
It actually makes him stronger.
It worked, which is what's kind of dumb too.
Right. That was the great thing about. I mean, there was only one good thing about the film that with Eric Bana, is that the more they fought him, the worse it got. So they
He
figured
physically
out
got larger.
that if they actually just calm the fuck down and let him just kind of like fight it out, that he eventually just turns back into a person.
Is that what they did in the end?
Pretty sure they leave him they tranquilize him or something. I don't know, but they don't just keep firing rockets at him.
Yeah,
I guess
right.
they do.
The Eric Bana
that
one was
movie's
not good.
But
Yeah.
the Iron Man 2, he does the same thing. He acknowledges that he needs to get the crazy robots away from the people, but like 5 minutes after rockets have been flying, or Jarvis would have get them away from people. It's like, that should have been priority number one.
Yeah.
He's only there for you, buddy. He's not there to ruin the party. He's there to kill you. Just leave.
You mean in Sokovia?
No, in Iron Man 2.
Oh, and
he's only there to like oh no, that's right. No, he's there.
He's there to fuck everyone
He's
up.
there to fuck everyone up because he wants to ruin the reputation of Stark.
Yeah, exactly.
What I like about Stark's arc, especially the first movie, is that he, for whatever reason, his father was only making weapons, which is kind of weird because they kind of kiboshed that version of him later on. Like they said that he's actually a guy who makes defensive things, because he makes that shield for Iron Man, and then for some reason he just starts making weapons.
Well, no, but if you look at it, so first of all, a shield is a weapon. Whether
well, he uses it like a weapon.
No, but even if it's being used as a shield, you have a shield because someone's trying to kill you, and you're trying to get close to kill them.
Right.
A shield. You don't just say, "Oh yeah, a shield." You slide down hills, do whatever you want with it. No, it is for war. It is meant to kill people in a way, right? It's just not the implement of killing them. But the other things that he works on throughout it, he works on the serum to make super soldiers. That is very clearly a weapon, right? And on top of that, most people, who have these really complicated moral issues, it's like they make all their money from the weapons, but on the side they make the things they want to, which is literally what Tony Stark does until he decides to stop making weapons. Right.
Okay, so I was wrong with that. But my point is, his father, he just got that from his father and just kept doing it because he just thought it made sense until he is on the receiving end of his own weaponry, and he realizes how bad that is, and he goes on this crusade of destroying his own weapons and creating defensive weapons. And I love that. I love how he and then after that, even it never stops all the way into Ultron or Avengers 2. He's still being blamed for shit that his dad did.
Yeah.
For weapons, the things that he is no longer responsible for, that he dedicated his life to creating something that would defend people against everything, including his own weapons, and he's still being blamed for it.
Yep. And that's the nature of the beast, right? That's always going to happen.
And he also does the Luke Cage thing where people know who he is, where he doesn't have an alter ego, even though they still call him Iron Man. No one's like, it's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. His persona is so strong that knowing who he's inside of the machine is still referred to as Iron Man. But Luke Cage is like, yeah, I'm a superhero, but then he just goes and hangs out with his friends and family like something's not gonna happen.
Well, that's the big difference. That Luke Cage does not have the ability to protect the ones he loves, and Tony Stark does. Tony Stark is much more mobile, much more able to affect change in the world.
He's got he has a radio controlled super suit that teleports to his girlfriend, and becomes a suit around her to get her away. Luke Cage is like, I can not get killed by bullets.
Yeah, I can get in the way of them.
He's like the boring version of Superman.
Yeah, he is. He's a boring version of Superman.
And then some guy just gets a strong bullet. It's not even like a special bullet. It's just a strong one.
No, it's a special bullet.
Right, yeah, it drills into him or whatever, but it's not like a Kryptonian bullet where I found a rare thing that kills you.
Yeah.
That's what Smallville turned into. Every episode was someone found some Krypton or some kryptonite. It's like, I get that it was a big thing, it was a lot of kryptonite, but how does everybody have it? Has so many people have kryptonite?
Yeah, and I guess maybe a bunch of rocks all landed with him.
But I guess it would be hard for him to track them down, right?
Oh yeah, they would have no way to track them down.
Because he would get near them and then be like, ah.
Yeah, exactly. It would definitely not work in his favor.
Why though? What is kryptonite? What was it doing on the planet? Is that why they died? Were they mining it?
I don't understand how that all works.
And why did it come with them?
It doesn't no part of it makes sense. It's so we were on this planet and we were not super there because of this stuff that we were sitting on top, and we knew this, yet we were still sitting on top of it. It's like if we went and found a planet made exclusively out of lead and then decided to live there, but you know, we would develop a way to be lead tolerant. It would just make us stupid. So, well, why would we be living on that planet?
What's funny about that is actually the Romans knew that lead's poisonous, and they still used it for their pipes.
It's because it was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just lazy people. we love to stand back and go, look, we made cities, but every step of the way in the making that city, we took shortcuts. We always did what we believed we could.
Well, even the city we're in right now.
Until somebody came along and went, you can't build that shit like that.
Yeah.
Take it down.
Yeah. Like,
And then we still fucking next year. And it took like 8 years.
people always want to do things the easiest way possible,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the funny thing too is I was actually really jazzed about Man of Steel for the beginning of the film. I actually really enjoyed it. I loved the way that Clark was trying to find his way in the world, and everywhere he went, he was somehow fucked with for being like a nice guy, I guess. And then he always like lost his temper and then had to leave because he like smashed some guy's truck up. I thought that was really cool. Even the thing where even the whole story with his dad, and he's like, you have to become an idol to these people, and it's like, how did you know where he was going to land and who people were going to be? Because you sent it a long time ago, and there's a lot of nonsense.
I don't know the movie that well, to be honest.
But there's a part where they explain that because he used to live on a planet that was smaller, bigger. No, sorry, it was the sun. The sun is stronger. So you are a stronger being. So being near this tiny sun makes you stronger to other people. That's their explanation. That's their scientific explanation, like we needed one, of why Superman is so strong. It also explains why he's able to jump super high. I'm with you, all right? It's consistent to your own story's set of rules. That's fine with me. And I was actually really excited that he was going to jump and not fly, because that was the original Superman. Could jump tall buildings in a single bound. He was not a flying guy until the TV version of him came about.
Whoa.
Yeah, I could be wrong about that, but that was his whole thing. It was like could leap tall buildings in a single bound. So I thought they were gonna make him just a jumper, just a cool jumper. I'm like, that's a way more interesting thing than an impervious man who can fly anywhere without worrying about he doesn't even have to worry about startup speed like a helicopter or a plane.
Mm-hmm.
He goes in any direction at any point. The character is he's just like a ghost. He just goes wherever he wants.
He's just suspended in space.
Yeah, and that's why he's such a boring character to me. Batman has to get up and then find a place that's higher than the place he wants to go to glide to it, and he has to use a grappling hook and all this cool shit. Superman levitates like nothing and then he can fly. And then just for some reason he can fly in the film.
My favorite superhero may be the Hulk. I really appreciate the Hulk for a number of reasons. The first is that he jumps. That's how the Hulk gets around, because he can jump really, really high. Yep. And in the Ed Norton one, there's some pretty cool scenes with that as well. Of him jumping around in the desert and
he kicks
crossing huge distances.
He kicks what's that guy's name across a field to a tree.
Oh, Tim Roth.
Tim Roth.
I really like Tim Roth's character in that. I was always hoping that they would come out with a follow up. Where the Abomination escapes from prison and
they had to reboot that twice.
Yeah, and that was the second iteration. Mark Ruffalo is now the ultimate iteration. Hopefully.
No, they're never over.
Yeah, it's true.
They're not done with the series. Yeah. They'll probably reboot the entire thing. They'll probably do a Teen Titans Go situation.
I just also like the way the Hulk fights. So the Hulk has two things on his side. He has brute force, but he also has blitzkrieg tactics, because the Hulk doesn't plan things, and the Hulk doesn't fear things either. Yeah. So there's a scene in the first Avengers movie where it was definitely supposed to be one of those really cheesy callbacks where Captain Rogers just says Hulk smash, and he just starts rattling all the cages, but he jumps from the ground to the 30th story, grabs a guy, smashes him into the wall, jumps to another building across the road, smashes him, flips around on the building, smashes another guy, and then jumps onto that thing, that big huge flying thing, and just shoves one of its own plates down into its head. And I just loved how beastly it was.
Well, no one expects that.
Yeah,
they're expecting a tactical approach.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's this guy who just rips shit off and breaks it.
Exactly. And there were so many scenes like that where every time the Hulk got involved in the fight, like when he fights Loki, right? He just grabs him and just bounces him off the marble a bunch of times, right? It was so simple, but it feels good to watch.
Oh, yeah.
You just, yeah, kill him, right? That's all you're thinking during that scene.
Captain America is my favorite because
Okay.
he's so vulnerable in comparison to everybody else.
Not in the Avengers.
Bullets, he dies to bullets.
Yeah, but Hawkeye, Black Widow.
Oh, right, but he's also cool. Like
He's a real hero.
Hawkeye is just he just shoots stuff. Like, cool, man.
Well, no, Hawkeye is superhuman. He is.
Oh, yeah,
he's just not as superhuman
just
as
boring.
they are. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then Black Widow's also pretty cool. I like her. But I like Captain America because he is so upfront and he doesn't like
Oh yeah.
even his stealth in the second film, which is probably one of my favorite Avengers films, is The Winter Soldier. And the movie begins with him basically like stealthily infiltrating a big ship by using his shield to just fucking thwomp dudes. And it's like even his brand of stealth is like America.
That infiltration of the boat may be one of the best scenes with him in it.
Yeah,
like
it's
that
awesome.
whole
And
that
I-
whole sequence.
And that film is sort of like what would happen if you made a superhero Jason Bourne film. It's like spy shit, and he's like putting hoods on and like sneaking away and watching shit, and then he gets his buddy, or I guess he finds a buddy, and he turns into Nightwing or whatever. Not Nightwing, whatever. Falcon,
yeah. And that's a good point. When you have a character like Thor, there's all these things that will now be involved in the movie. Like he can fly, he can shoot lightning, he's uber strong, he has this hammer that can't be picked up. Like there's all these magical things that just suddenly become part of the narrative.
Yeah.
Whereas that's why I like Tony Stark, because he is the perfect blend of magic and reality.
right?
Because obviously that technology doesn't exist today, but it is so much more plausible than Thor, right?
Right.
Even though
Yep.
both of those things are completely implausible.
And the Thor film, I really enjoyed Ragnarok. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Actually, one of the very few examples where I would say the Zeppelin song was well used, and they used the same one twice.
Yeah.
And I actually really dislike the use of that song. I think it's just so overdone
In general,
and boring.
yeah.
But they did it well both times, and I had a big smile on my face both times. But I really didn't like that ending where Thor was just like, Jay, she's too strong. Let's just blow up Asgard. And they're like, excuse me? And he's like, don't worry. Asgard's not a place. It's a people. No, Thor, it's a place.
Yes.
You've been referring to it for many, many movies, and I'm sure it took a long-ass time to build. It's a fucking place, man.
The main problem with that movie is that they did not keep continuity. What they should have had in that movie is Thor 1, Thor 2, this is now Thor 3. So everything stays the same. Thor discovers that he actually has godly powers, and Asgard is not a people, it's a place, but it's okay because the people of Asgard survive. Even though there's only like 100 of them?
Yeah, there's nobody there.
That's not a very big ship.
It's like as many people as there are in the beginning of the film, in that one, in like where Loki's
And
like putting on a play.
I think part of it is because every single male Asgardian is dead because she
Right.
killed them all,
Oh.
right? So those are just women and children. That's all that is, right?
I thought it was a very interesting decision to have, like, the film doesn't really take place on his way. He's not on his way to the bad guy. Like, he spends all his time in some weird planet, and then he just like, and then she's like, I am here now. And I think it's because like they've already explained that you can teleport basically anywhere you want in their version of the world. So the adventure is no longer there anymore. So you have to make something cool in the place that you're at, because it's going to take him 5 seconds to get to Asgard when he gets out of there.
That's a very good point. I just think that they made some confusing things. Like, okay, suddenly you guys are gods, where you weren't before, or at least they were trying to say, you know, he makes some reference about, you know, you call it science, or we call it magic, but you can channel lightning through your body. Don't tell me that's science, motherfucker.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with is that Avengers 3? Is that what it's called?
There is no
Infinity War?
Yeah.
It was actually Avengers though?
Yes, it's Avengers Infinity War.
That film was basically the same plot to not the same plot, but the same idea, is that Thor is trying to get his magical powers back, and he doesn't have them for the whole film. And as soon as he does, he just thwomps, what's his name, pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the same idea. Thor is stuck in a place for a certain amount of time, and then but once he gets there, like that's the problem with like it's the same thing with like Superman, like how the way that Smallville turned into like someone has a kryptonite bullet or a thing, or someone's taken someone that Superman cares about. There's only so many things can happen, right?
Yeah, well, and I'm forgetting exactly how it happened, but something really dumb happens in Infinity War, where they're like this close to getting the gauntlet off Thanos' hand, and then I believe it's Chris Pratt's character just fucks it all up. Out of like some, like I get like why he was upset, but for a person who deals with death on a regular basis, he seems surprisingly unstable in that situation. So you were this close to being able to actually just murder Thanos and get your revenge, but instead you want to hit him in the face.
Oh, interesting.
So this guy who basically cannot be harmed, and you want to punch him in the face? Like it just seems like you are angry at a business, and so you punch their wall. Like it's not going to do any good.
Josh Brolin though is killing it.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah, he played Thanos.
He played Thanos?
Pretty sure.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Let me confirm that.
Josh Brolin being the main character in No Country for Old Men, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if I would know Josh Brolin from much of anything else. Nothing that's immediately coming to my mind.
He's also in Sicario.
And that one I haven't actually seen, unfortunately. But I think he's one of those actors that you see all over the place and you just don't always recognize that they're in that role.
Yeah, played by Josh Brolin.
Okay, interesting. And that's like Oscar Isaac playing Apocalypse in X-Men. I had no idea. He's fantastic. I love him.
You didn't even want to admit. You didn't even want to accept that his name was Oscar Isaac. You kept saying it was Isaac Oscar. You never trust a man with two first names.
You shouldn't. You really shouldn't. Yeah, I've met a few like that, and I just give them nicknames because it makes me feel more comfortable.
What do you call Viggo Mortensen?
What do I call him?
Yeah, what's your nickname for him?
I was gonna call him like Vigi, but it sounds like vegan. V-Mort, I guess.
Vimo.
Nice. That could work.
I like that.
Yeah.
He's in a movie. Green
No
Book?
way. He's acting?
He's in a movie.
He's an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Green Book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it good?
I've not seen it, but it looks really good.
It's got the guy. I don't know what you would know him from.
Well, he plays. Shit, I don't actually. He plays. Yeah, he plays Diamondback in.
No. He's in the same. He's in that though.
So not Diamondback. What's the other guy's name?
He plays the guy. He plays the club owner.
Yeah, but what's his name?
I have no idea.
I thought his name was Diamondback.
No.
So no, Diamondback is the other guy.
Diamondback's the one who gets the super suit and dies in 5 seconds.
Yeah, he's real cool. His super suit that's like a jacket. Stupidest
thing. That's like in Batman in our Dark Knight Rises. They're like, oh yeah, the fall really hurt his leg, and he hasn't done anything about it. But now he's gonna put on a suit or a little fucking like lever on his leg, and allows him to kick through concrete walls. And it's like, okay, I'll give it to you. Maybe he has a knee thing that allows it to take the force of walking. That's fine. I'll let you have that one. But the force required, or the strength required in your ankles and your bones to go through concrete does not come from a thing on your knee.
Well,
like
even if
he basically would have broke all of his bones.
Well, his tibia and his fibula for sure. Yeah. The lower leg bones would have broken both. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say that thing actually extended all the way down to the bottom of his foot. It still doesn't explain how he'd be able to stay upright, because the amount of pressure you'd have to put on the concrete would send him flying across the room, right?
Right.
So just no part of it really makes sense.
That is something that most filmmakers, whether they understand it or not, I don't know, but most filmmakers don't put in the one of the most basic rules of physics, that the force has to be equal in both directions.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you fire a bullet, the bullet force and the buttstock force are very similar in the amount of outward.
Well, in the first instant, they're the same.
Right. The difference is the buttstock is gigantic, so it distributes force, so it doesn't go through your arm, and the bullet is very tiny, so it slices through at the exact same or similar amount of force. So, like, yeah, I didn't even think about that. If you kicked something hard enough to go through it, the force would also be in the opposite direction.
Going back at you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you would need to be heavy enough to stay on the ground.
Yeah. Which is why it makes sense when in Batman vs. Superman, when he's in a steel suit, that he could do things like that because he now would weigh thousands of pounds. He would now actually have the bulk required to do those types of things.
That version of Batman is pretty funny. He is basically like two different comics versions of Batman.
Like the Affleck man, or
Affleck, yeah.
Okay.
No, both of the modern versions of Batman are kind of based off of like 4 different comic books, and they're not like the ones that are what Batman really should be. And then the Affleck one was like almost entirely from 2 different comic books. One of them is like a future. It's called The Dark Knight, I think, and it's where Batman retires for like 10 years and then comes back, and in his absence, criminals have become worse, so he just adapts to it and just starts fucking killing people. He's just like, I don't have time for this anymore. I'm just gonna start smoking people, right? So the Affleck version of Batman is already past that point, which is so weird to introduce us to a character that's supposed to be all about morality and not killing, and you're like, yeah, he fucks people up. Like, there's no hesitation.
It took me like 20 minutes to figure out, oh, this is just how it's gonna be.
Yeah, he's shooting at people. He's like landing his vehicle on top of other cars with people in them. He doesn't give a fuck anymore.
Well, at first I thought they had made a grievous error, because I thought, oh, well, that guy died and that guy died. Like, what kind of shitty movie is this where these people are supposedly getting out of this? And then I realized, oh, that's not a rule anymore. Yeah. It would have been nice for a little preface.
That whole film was weird because it's very difficult when you haven't established a character to introduce them in the same movie that you're supposed to share with someone else. It's why Suicide Squad was such a train wreck, because there's like 7 different people, and you're trying to explain who they are and their connection to each other and how they get better as a group. And you're supposed to do that in one film. That was even worse, because there wasn't any. There was more explanation of the guy of Batman who's in that movie for 5 seconds than there was the characters that were in the film. Yeah,
and then there's the one obligatory guy who's just there to get his head blown off so they can show you he's serious.
Yeah. The I Hate Everything made a video about that one, and he's like, get ready. This man's power is he can climb anything. That's it. That's his power. He can climb anything. Guy who's so good at climbing, he climbed himself right out of the movie.
That's pretty good.
Holy fuck. And then one of our favorite actors, guy who plays Varro in Spartacus.
Yep.
He plays Captain Boomerang.
Oh, yeah.
Which was way more ridiculous back in like the 60s. The old version of Captain Boomerang looked like Captain America. Like, he was like fully colored and shit.
He did I actually liked that character.
He was great.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And I thought it was appropriate. The behavior of Harley Quinn, his character, the Flame guy, Deadshot, I felt like their behavior was very appropriate to the characters, and that I appreciated. I didn't feel like they were all just, oh, well, now we've been given a chance to be heroes, so we're gonna be heroes. The only one that had that struggle was Deadshot, because he has a child, and that was the whole point of the struggle. So I thought they did a good job with that one. I like that one.
The bigger issue, though, than introducing that many main characters at once, is that the film was edited by 2 different people, or 2 different groups. It was edited by the people making the film, and it was also a second version was edited by the team that did the trailer, the famous Bohemian Rhapsody trailer. And then I don't know what the final version was of it, but I believe it was like some sort of weird combination. Which is why the pacing of the film is so strange. It's just, it's amazing how much better the Marvel's universe is to the DC universe. And it's like the DC universe is like, you've had a 10-year start, so we're just going to start here. Like, it might have even been better for them to start from the beginning there. because they're fresh ideas.
Yeah, and I would say as exciting as the Avengers are, most people probably prefer the Iron Man movies.
Oh yeah.
Because they're more complete.
Yeah.
Right? And they feel good. When you watch the Avengers, it's great and all. But when you watch Iron Man 1, you get this special amped up feeling, especially when it's over.
The pacing of Iron Man 1 is so good.
The way it ends is fantastic.
The way it ends is also really cool.
It is the most perfect introduction we could have had to the Marvel Universe.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing.
Well, I love how there isn't a quick prologue where Tony sees something terrible and says, I'm going to make a new thing. He has this whole, like, I don't even know how long it takes. It's probably like a 20-minute intro, right? Of him being captured and building this early version of Iron Man to survive. Not because he was inspired, because he knew the only way to get out of there was to build something that he would be able to survive long enough to get out with, which is awesome. It's like it speaks to like humanity. And then when he's making the new version of it, he's like tinkering with his glove thing, and he's watching some news thing, and he's seeing people being subjugated with the weapons that he made, and there's this teary-eyed look in his face, like, what have I done to the world? How have I so negatively affected it without feeling that way until this point? So he goes and saves that family in that, like, the first moment that we see the true Iron Man. He does it in an emotional, like, heroic attempt. He doesn't even, like, there's no bosses there. He's not changing, like, the world. He's just trying to save a small village that has been taken over with his own weaponry. And he does it with no, like, mercy. He's like, let them go. And they're like, no. And he's like, it just kills everybody.
I really wish Don Cheadle was in the first movie as Rhodes. Because one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when he's on the bottom of the jet.
Yes.
And he's like, it's not an asset. It's me. I'm in the suit. I just love the panic in his voice.
Yeah.
That and the scene where they fly up into the stratosphere and both of their suits freeze, so they start to fall. That scene where they show the eye slits and the light blurring past it, that scene is so powerful because you realize how fragile his whole system is.
Yes. Well, and you also get like a nice foreshadow because they explain the freezing issue earlier in the film. Yeah. And so the bad guy hasn't had enough time with it to know how that system works.
Yeah, how'd you solve the freezing issue?
Right.
such great rhetoric.
We also, what was it? Shit. What were we just talking about? Oh, the moment you were talking about.
Fuck. You see through the eye slits?
Yeah. In that moment. Oh, right. When he takes out that village of bad guys and then takes out the tank, it's like, oh yeah, fucking Iron Man. But then the actual, like, the American army shows up and he panics because he's still not that good yet. That's what's great about any origin story, is that you always get to see the character in this compromised situation where they didn't realize, like, how, they didn't know their limit, and now they're past it, and now they're freaking out,
biting off more than you can chew.
And we also get to find out how they react in that situation, like what do they do when their powers are gone, or like
or when they're at a disadvantage. It's also just interesting to think that is the first real Marvel movie that we had to sink our teeth into.
Yep.
And the first real DC movie we had to sink our teeth into was Man of Steel.
Right.
So that actually sets the stage, in my opinion, for what you can expect to see going forward. At the end of Man of Steel, you got this super long, not interesting fight because there was no real worry or concern. And then in the end, you get this very unsatisfying ending that it didn't feel like it felt like, don't worry about it, go back to your homes. That's what the ending felt like. Whereas at the end of Iron Man, when he stands up at the podium and just goes fuck it, and just says, I am Iron Man. Yeah. And then it ends. And I don't know, sorry people. And then what plays after that? It's an AC/DC song. And I believe it's Highway to Hell.
No, it's Iron Man. It's
Iron Man?
By,
okay.
Because they do Highway to Hell, I'm pretty sure, is in an earlier part of that film.
Yeah, I believe so. I love how much AC/DC is in the Iron Man movies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it works so perfectly.
It's so good.
It's heavy, but it's kind of light It doesn't make any sense, but
No, it's true. It does make sense.
It's
though.
like it's party rock. It's like
Yes.
fun, family-friendly party rock, which is what Iron Man's all about.
It's the OG screamo.
Interesting.
It's the first. It's the first screaming that I know of.
Oh, that's true.
Right. Like,
well, I wouldn't say it's first. Zeppelin is way before that, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and Zeppelin did a lot of like meow.
They did, but not like I just find that in AC/DC they scream a lot more of like the words.
AC/DC's
like,
all the time. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. God, 9
9
lives, cat's eyes. Right? It's like you said, party rock. It's so good for like young kids enjoy it. People of sort of the 18 to 50 bracket enjoy it. Older people who are familiar with it from back in the day like it. And then in was it the Avengers? I think it was in one of the Avengers movies where Loki goes to like steal that guy's eye with that crazy thing. Yeah. I think it's the second Avengers actually. And they show up. So Tony shows up and he like hacks into the speaker system for the jet and makes it start playing AC/DC. I love that. All those little things are what make his character great. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man is like the central pillar that holds together like a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, I think you were the one that said that he represents, as him and Captain America are like two sides of the same brain, essentially. Like they're like the two leaders rather than one.
I agree. Whereas when you look at a DC, Batman and Superman are supposed to be those two, but Batman and Superman are not segregated in the same way. Superman and Batman go at things differently because they have different abilities, right? Batman has no abilities. Superman has all the abilities. So Batman is all about solving through proper technique and correct action, whereas Superman is all about attempting to do things with the tools he already has.
And he's a hammer.
He's a hammer,
yeah.
Exactly. Whereas
it's that line from Burn Notice. The duct tape makes you smart. Batman is a duct tape guy. He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't get to just walk in and start shooting things. He measures everything out. He makes intelligent decisions. He plays people. That's what I love about the Nolan films, is that he's a very smart Batman. He like the whole thing in The Dark Knight where he abducts that guy from China is like beautiful. He sets that shit up days ahead. He like sneaks in there, he turns the lights off, he figures out where everybody is, he grabs the dude and then just vanishes out the window and flies away. Like, that's so cool.
He even sneaks in a spy device.
Yeah. Superman would have walked in, broken the window.
Excuse me, walked?
Yeah, sorry, flown in. Walked I literally mean walked, okay? He would have flown in, literally, levitated. Just broke the glass as he walked through it. He wouldn't even need to punch it. He can just move through it. Grab the dude and flown away. It would have been much slicker, but it wouldn't have been nearly as satisfying for the person watching.
Absolutely. It's the same as, it's really awesome when you see someone like learn to do something that they've never done before. But it's not really exciting to watch someone do something they've always known how to do. Like watching a person walk, not really that exciting. But watching a kid walk for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so that's why it's all relative. That's why Batman's interesting to watch and has really deep character development, and Superman can go fuck himself. Because it's just not as interesting. It just isn't. There's no way to make that uber unbeatable character interesting. And I think Luke Cage is a great example of that. That show was so boring. It had cool parts.
It did, yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be sitting here and saying it's a shitty show. It's not bad. But by comparison to Jessica Jones season 1, that show might as well have been bad because it was slow, generally uninteresting, did not seem to have a tremendous amount of conflict. They did not do very much to put vulnerable characters in harm's way. They just kept putting Luke Cage in harm's way, and they're like, oh, they got this magic bullet. The kryptonite magic bullet thing loses everyone's interest because now it's like a Kansas City shuffle. We're all looking left when all the interesting stuff is happening to the right. You've got this bullet, and now we're following it around. We're like, okay, Diamondback's got the bullet, and now this other guy's got the bullet, and now he's got the bullet, and now they put in the gun, and like it could shoot him. But we're missing all the things that are really interesting. We're missing all the stuff that Luke is actually doing. We're missing all of the other things that are going on while this whole bullet fiasco is happening. It just, to me, seems tired. It seems very tired. It seems like all we're gonna do is recycle the bullet every season. Oh, and now they've generated a larger drilling bullet that will kill him faster. And it's like, oh no!
Now
Oh,
everyone's
no.
got the bullet. It's like, okay, so what does he do now? That's what I love about Black Panther. It's more than just.
It's all technology.
Well, yeah, but it's more than just that because he actually loses it in the film. He has to be the Black Panther.
It is pretty cool. The Black Panther was done very, very well.
I loved it. I enjoyed almost every part of it. There were a couple scenes that really bugged me. One, they did a very rushed job on the animation of him jumping when he was wearing a suit. It looked so fake and weird. And then there's a part where I don't know her name, but she's from
his sister.
She's from Walking Dead. No, it's his like left hand, his right hand lady.
Oh yes, and she plays Michonne.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's covered in bulletproof stuff, which is pretty neato, but her head isn't. And this dude's just unloading on her, and she's like, bullets. And it's like, yeah, one of them could have hit you in the face, and it didn't. And it's just like, I just don't like undirected action. It just bugs me so much. So like when someone's just firing, and then you see just a whole bunch of bullets going off, it's just boring. It's so lazy. It's like it's the reason
it is lazy. Yeah.
It's the reason why Kevin Smith said he doesn't want to make superhero films. People are like, "You're so into comics, you should make a superhero film." And he's like, "Action's so boring to direct, to film. I don't want to do
technical.
It.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
Comedy's way more fun.
Yeah,
because you can enjoy it while you film it. You
I
can't enjoy action.
I can't believe I never noticed this. Is it Game of Thrones is like 90% talking? Somehow they made it so interesting that I didn't like make that distinction in my head.
Well, because it's not a game of swords and knives. It's a game of thrones. That's where the real action happens.
Right.
Is in all these conversations that Cersei has with people. I really appreciate that because when there is action, when the Sword of the Morning is fighting 4 guys, it's unreal, right? It really it punctuates things. When you watch the Viper fight the Mountain, it's
exciting.
Dude, when we knew that was coming, because in the episode before, so there's a week as everyone's waiting for it, and in that week, everyone's just thinking, "What the fuck's gonna happen? Like, where is this battle gonna?"
It was just so awesome.
No one knew. No one knew.
It's a feeling you can't get from a show where there's sword fighting every episode.
Absolutely,
and
that's
amazing that
or even from something where it's not sword fighting, but where there's shooting or Matt.
Are you ticking?
I don't know. I feel like it's just a pressure in the room changing and everything's clicking around us. But yeah, I agree. Anything like that, anything with magic or whatever, the more you have action, the less that action is going to be to the person watching.
Yes.
The less impact it's going to have. You were just mentioning the chick not having her head covered. Mm-hmm. And you haven't seen Jupiter Ascending yet, right?
No.
And I don't. But
Jupiter Ascending is the one with
Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis.
I watched a
video about
Nostalgia Critic on
it. Nice. So you've got the basic gist of it.
Yeah.
One of the things I did like about it is that it presented this world that I think we may reasonably be moving towards, and a few of the items that I definitely think are on their way. What was that other movie with Vin Diesel where he had to like escort some girl somewhere in like the snow? No, that's Nick Cage. Oh. Season of the Witch?
There's a witch hunting show that Vin Diesel was in.
Oh, okay. No, maybe that is Season of the Witch. Yeah, maybe you're right. But anyways, there's another movie that Vin Diesel's in where he has to transport this girl across this like Arctic environment in the future. And in it, they have a lot of these personal defense technologies that don't exist right now. Like these people have energy shields and all these other... They're, like I said, a shield is a weapon. So they have all these weapons that are so non-conventional. I think that is the direction we're going. Like instead of having a gun in your purse, you're gonna have an energy shield in your purse. So like something goes down, you pull it out, and it makes like you remember the Wakanda soldiers. They have energy shields, right? It just seems like it's only a matter of time, whether it's 1,000 years or 100 years. At some point, we're gonna go in this direction where every individual person will have what would, in today's standards, make them a god. The same way you can go out and buy a gun, and if you were transported 100 years ago, you could just kill everybody. There's nothing they could do.
If you showed them a smartphone, they would burn you alive.
Absolutely. But if you show them an M60, they would pray before you.
Wow. I think you just got to like the heart of belief.
The heart of the matter, yeah.
That like people that it's like
Yeah.
the Dothraki only follow those with power.
Strength. Yes.
A cow who cannot ride is no cow at all.
Well, people fear information. People fear what they don't know, but they don't fear it enough to respect it. They fear it enough to destroy it, whereas they fear threat of violence enough to respect it. And that's an unusual thing because violence doesn't progress us. Violence doesn't get us anything.
Violence. No, fuck. I was going to say violence only gets us violence, but I thought for some reason that was part of that song by Protest.
Oh.
Bombings don't justify bombings.
Violence will justify violence. Oh my god. So yeah, that's the state of movies these days? It's basically all Marvel and DC?
No. There's also sometimes people make movies about Oscar Isaac and Natalie Portman, and they're pretty good.
Oh yeah, there's always that.
And sometimes there's a Star Wars film. This is the first Christmas there hasn't been a Star Wars film since they started.
They did 3 in a row or 4? Because there's been 4 movies, right? There's been 2 official chapters plus Rogue One and...
No, it's only been 2 years. Since like the...
Really?
Yeah.
But they've released 4 movies since
right,
Disney took over.
But those come out in the summer, don't they?
Oh, you may be
I'm
right.
pretty sure the
yeah.
Christmas the official episodes have been Christmas releases.
Interesting, and there wasn't. Yeah, you're right. There wasn't one this year.
Yeah, I think they're calming down. I think it's actually a good thing for the series that they're going to make less because they're probably going to do better.
And I agree with you because the reason I never watched Rogue One, the reason I haven't seen the second episode installment, and the reason I probably won't see Solo for a while, is that it's too much for me to digest. 4 movies in 2 years. That's a lot. That is a prolific amount of movies.
I would actually recommend Rogue One over the rest of them.
I've heard that. I've heard Rogue One is the best, and I really like Alan Tudyk, so I do want to check it out.
What?
It's just I started it. Alan Tudyk plays a robot.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I started it, and it started with the scroll, and the scroll finished, and then it went and like panned down to a planet the way it always does, and then I just thought, I don't want to do this, and I stopped watching. I don't know what it was. I just think I wasn't ready for 2 hours of Star Wars.
Oh yeah. What I liked about Rogue One is that none of the characters have to live. Like you don't know any of them.
Oh.
So shit goes down, and Mads Mikkelsen is in it, and he's really good. But he's a good guy.
Is that how you just pronounce his name?
Mads Mikkelsen? I don't know.
Okay, because he's a Mikkelsen, and I was thinking that it could be. Could be.
I don't know.
But Mikkelsen sounds easier to pronounce, but it could be. Who knows? I don't even know what nationality that is.
Either.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know there's a golfer named Mickelson, so that's just my assumption is that that's what it would be.
You know anyone named Mads?
No.
Oh.
I know some people who are mad. That doesn't count though, does it?
I think this almost is considered small talk at this point.
Oh yeah, but it's the whole point, right? It was small talk. It is small talk on a big stage. You're like, no, still small talk.
But if all the world is a stage, could it not mean that this stage is all the world?
In a way, it is. If you're on YouTube, your stage is the world.
Interesting. And it's your only reach into the world. Nobody knows about what you are and have to say until you say it onto YouTube.
Well, the internet.
It's one of the only reaches that most people have.
It's true, except for Facebook.
Right, but this still is probably...
I hope that was too quiet for my mic.
I think it's probably, though, through that source, still only linked to YouTube. Twitter videos are linked to YouTube.
It's a very good point. And same with Twitter, Instagram. Often it's someone tweets out a video or they send out an Instagram post and that Instagram post links to either YouTube or Twitter. Yeah, that is so true. And it's going to be very interesting going into the future where this interconnected web that we have is not like it used to be. It used to be, here's the internet, here's us, and here's all of us connecting to the internet in a million different ways. But now it's, here's us, here's the internet as we used to know it, and here's social media and all the platforms inside of it. And now there's connections between those things and between different websites on the internet, and then also between us. Things like, I'm going to see a YouTube video on Twitter that was actually linked from Instagram. That is so new. That never happened before, but that's now going to be common. And every tweet that I see from Joe Rogan is actually an Instagram post that has been linked to Twitter. Right? So if he puts a YouTube video up, it is 3 levels of disconnection between me and the posted content. That is totally unheard of. That is so many middlemen that are all profiting off of this exchange. And that's what they are. They're middlemen. They may do a great service for us, but they're not actually part of that content process. Yeah. So just be careful. And go to the source, please. If you're out there and you see something with those bars and you know what that shit is,
well, and you can
go to the
most of the
source.
time. Like when it's linked through there, you generally have the YouTube plug-in play thing, and you can click the YouTube button. And if you click that YouTube, it'll actually bring you to the video you're watching on YouTube.
Exactly, and it's same with if you link something from Twitter to Instagram or vice versa. They usually have a link automatically embedded in there. It's just always good to see things in the way they were originally intended to be seen, just to make sure that someone's not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, because people will do that so often.
Absolutely.
And it's so easy when you have all those middlemen, all those layers of obscure, I was going to say of obscurial, but that's a Harry Potter thing. All those obscuring layers to make it harder for you to actually connect directly with the creator of the content. Yeah. It's a big wide world, people. Just find your little corner. Make it nice and bright. Those are words to leave you with. Our next discussion will be on Pulp Fiction. So please tune back in for that sometime in the new year.
Yeah.
No. This will come out in January, so that will be February 2019.
Nice.
2019. Holy shit.
It's almost like one more digit.
Yeah. It's like we crossed some sort of line, and then it changed. It's crazy. Either way, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
We will be back.
Bye-bye.